On the 19th of September 1978, 13-year-old Carl Bridgewater left his home in Wordsley in the West Midlands. Like thousands of other children across the country, he was carrying out a paper round. At 4 p.m, Carl was making one of his final deliveries of the day to Yew Tree Farm. The occupants, an elderly couple, were out. It seems Carl entered the farmhouse and disturbed a burglary. Carl was then shot at point-blank range in the face with a shotgun. The cold-blooded murder sparked one of the biggest police manhunts for a child killer ever seen in the UK.
We have a good witness and a very clear and lucid type of witness.
The police theory was that if Carl had recognized whoever was stealing antiques from Yew Tree Farm, then they had murdered him so he couldn't reveal their identity. Eyewitness statements reported a man in uniform driving a blue Vauxhall Viva into Yew Tree Farm on the day that Carl was killed. The only man in a 50-mile radius who filled that description was local ambulance officer Bert Spencer. Bert also owned a shotgun and went shooting on land surrounding Yew Tree Farm. Furthermore, he was a part-time antiques dealer. When police found out that he'd been a neighbor of Carl's, he became the main focus of their investigation.
They told me that the paper boy, Carl, has been shot. And I just sat there and I thought, oh my God. And my dad was #1 suspect.
But just as it looked like Bert Spencer could have been arrested and charged with the crime, events took an unexpected turn. Detectives picked up a gang of robbers for a burglary at a nearby farm. Known as the Bridgewater Four, they were convicted and imprisoned for Carl's murder. But almost immediately, rumors circulated that the men had been fitted up by a corrupt police force eager to solve the crime. A rumor that was proven to be true when after 20 years, the men's conviction was quashed and they were free to go. With Carl's killer still at large, the crime remains one of the UK's most notorious unsolved murders.
The one who pulled the trigger, you know, I wish I could get my hands on him, you know what I mean? It's very hard to describe that, you know, your feelings to that person.
Although Bert was never charged with Carl's murder, he has lived under the constant shadow of suspicion. Now, he's decided it's time to speak out. Last time on Interview with a Murderer, the pressure of the intensive interviews gets to Bert.
What does it mean to be labelled as a murderer?
Just stop a minute.
Could farmer Hubert Wilkes, who Bert murdered, have been a witness at Yew Tree Farm the day Carl died?
You don't think he could have been at Yew Tree Farm that day? Is that a possibility?
Yes.
And Professor Wilson fears Bert may be displaying some worrying personality traits.
Am I dealing with somebody who's psychopathic?
For all the suspicions about Bert, there has always been one person who has supported his claim that he had nothing to do with the murder of Carl: his secretary and cast-iron alibi, Barbra. Barbra has refused all requests for interviews in the intervening years, but Bert has returned to Staffordshire with criminologist David Wilson in a bid to once and for all prove he had nothing to do with Carl's death. During the trip, Bert stuns everyone by asking the car to stop outside Barbra's home.
Barbra lived up here. Oh, we've got a camera. Hello, camera. Oh, I've got the wrong place. Does Barbra live here? Are you Julie? I'm Bert. I'm Bert. Come here. Come here, you cheeky bugger.
You're right. Oh my God.
All these years, eh? You look lovely. Is she in? Is she all right? Barbra! Hey, babe.
Oh,
Look at you.
I'm gonna cry.
Let's cry together.
Oh,
Come here.
oh, we're not going through all this again, are we?
No, it's better this time, lovey. Better this time. I wrote a book, Barbra.
Yeah.
to show why a lot of people were wrong in the allegations. I'm bloody crying, hang on a bit. And
Come on.
because of the book...
Just got in.
Come here, you.
What's it like seeing him again?
I can't believe it.
That's a long, long time.
It is a
And you
long
still look lovely. No job, weren't it, my life?
Answer me this question, and I want Bert not to interrupt.
Get on with it.
Why, the one thing that's always confused me about the Corbett Hospital part of the story are the records disappearing. Why do you think they disappeared?
Well, you see, it was open plan and very peculiar people went there at night, didn't they?
They used to go to steal computers and
Yeah,
telephones
yes,
and carpets.
Yeah,
Sorry it's
yeah.
interfering.
yeah.
I never knew I was going to get a chance to say hello to you. And the one bit from your witness statements that I wonder if we can clarify is that you didn't know if perhaps Bert had gone for lunch on the day that Carl Bridgewater had been murdered. You didn't know he could have gone for lunch, you said, and he normally takes his lunch between 12:30, could go on perhaps as late as 2. Can you remember if Bert took lunch that day that Carl Bridgewater was murdered?
Well, I suppose so. Going back a few years now, how can I remember what exactly I said with time? But this is it. I always used to go at 1 o'clock till 1:30. But he had various times. Well, he'd be missing. He got lots of hospitals to cope with. He didn't just cope with the COVID.
So he could have gone for lunch on that day, between those times?
Yes.
Yes. Well, that's great. That was what you said in your statement, and I just wanted to clarify that, and that's wonderful. Thank you. You provide Bert with an alibi, because you say, no, he was at Corbett Hospital. And then there's this bit in the statement that you make. You say, well, I take my lunch, and he could have also taken his lunch, and therefore I didn't see him. It may have been an open plan office, but I didn't see him continuously during the day, and he could have disappeared to go for lunch.
Yeah.
And that's a possibility, isn't it? So that's a bit of the story I'm trying to make sense of.
I might or might, I don't know, I might or might not have gone for lunch. I used to go and have a dinner upstairs in the canteen sometimes. But it doesn't matter, because Carl was killed around 4 something, and after someone saw the blue Viva go into the farm drive, a quarter of an hour afterwards, there were other vehicles there who didn't see the blue Vauxhall Viva. So it had gone in and gone out long before Carl was killed.
But I wonder if it became so frightening for you,
Oh,
Bert.
no, I'm not frightened of anything. You should know that.
I wonder if it became so frightening for you that if you admitted it was you going for your lunch and you turn around, because then people would go, wait a minute, they've already had the fact that you collected antiques and I went for my lunch and turned my car.
Right, let me come in. I could have said, if I were there, I was there. I had every right to be there, any time, day or night. I worked down the fields. I knew the people. I worked for the farmer who had the place. I had a right to be there, but it wasn't my car on that day.
That part of the story, the Vauxhall Viva, connects you, whether you like it or not, to this story.
Right. Now, whether you like it or not, David, if I had gone home for lunch on that day, I did not pass Yew Tree Farm.
So did you go
I went
for
the
lunch
journey
on that day?
I don't know, for Christ's sake.
You don't know. This is the story that's you've been the scapegoat for murder, and you can't remember if you went home for lunch on that day.
No, I
You
didn't.
didn't have a set pattern.
I didn't have a set pattern, David. I was all over the bloody place, and my phones never stopped, and I was up to
So if you had no set pattern, Bert, you could have been there at 4 o'clock. You could have been there at 5 o'clock. By opening up further possibilities, you make it more complicated and more possible.
Right, let's
rather
close
than
those
less
possibilities.
complicated.
Let's close those possibilities that you're making in your mind.
I'm not making them in my mind.
Will you listen?
Sure.
I didn't go home for lunch. You'll have to believe me. You can't disprove it.
I don't want us to argue any further.
We're not arguing. We're seriously discussing something that touches my emotions. I've clarified that.
Good. I am pleased about that. I am pleased that you've got good memories, and I'm delighted to have met you, Barbara.
Bert's claim that Barbara represents a cast-iron alibi no longer stands up. Following the astonishing revelation by Barbara, David Wilson reassembles his team of researchers. He feels he is now ready to present his theory about the involvement Bert may have had in Carl's death.
One of the things that confuses about Bert's relationship to the murder at Yew Tree Farm and to Carl Bridgewater has always been that he had an alibi supported by Barbra. Bert says he was at Corbett Hospital all day on the day that Carl is murdered. And then, of course, I've been with her, with Bert Spencer, almost 4 decades later, and I've listened to what she's had to say. And frankly, what she has to say is that he has no alibi on that particular day at all. We have to put him under pressure, either to admit he knows something more about Yew Tree Farm, that he was there earlier in the day at Yew Tree Farm, or we have to start saying that the reason why he won't admit to that is because there's something even greater that he's going to have to admit to, which was that he probably was the killer of Carl Bridgewater.
Professor David Wilson has spent the last 6 months looking into the murder of newspaper boy Carl Bridgewater. This is the 4th and final meeting between the two men.
You'll be tormenting somebody else tomorrow.
Tormenting. Come in.
Are all your people as blunt as me?
Why don't you have a seat?
Professor Wilson is about to present Bert with his final findings and offer his own evaluation of Bert's psychological state.
Bring your Coke if you want.
I will do.
Bring your
Thank
Coke.
you very much. Come on, then. Come on.
You all right? You comfortable?
Yes.
I think the phrase that you used that I always remember was that you said to me that you wouldn't run and you wouldn't hide.
I never do.
Your alibi is that you were at Corbett Hospital all day on the day that Carl Bridgewater was murdered. There was another person at Corbett Hospital that day who, of course, was Barbra.
What about the others?
Well, but Barbra in particular was
She
really
made
important.
a written statement, I believe.
She made several
Others,
written statements.
Well, OK, I didn't know that. Others who worked in the same floor space made verbal, yes, OK, he was here, but they didn't write it down. They didn't have to. The coppers at the time didn't do everything right, what I think is right. They didn't ask, will you make a statement? Will you make a statement? They didn't feel the need. Someone's already done it.
And Barbra made those statements.
Yes,
And as you know, I've tracked down those statements, and you were there when I asked her, could she say that she was there all afternoon and was able to verify that you were there all afternoon? And she can't. She can't guarantee what times you may have left Corbett Hospital all afternoon. Means that you don't have a cast iron alibi.
That's fair enough.
That alibi is, well, it disappears, Bert.
I accept what you say. I don't have now a cast iron alibi. Do you have any evidence that I killed Carl Bridgewater? If you do, sir, bring it forward. If you don't, shut your mouth. OK? You've now annoyed me.
You get annoyed by me fairly regularly,
yes.
Bert, and you threaten me quite a lot as well.
That's not threatening. It's me talking straight.
I also asked you, Bert, in relation to the Wilkes connection. What was happening the night that you took Hubert Wilkes' life? Your wife at the time made statements to various places saying that Carl Bridgewater was mentioned that night.
Well, if it was, I wasn't in the room at that time. I didn't mention it.
She says it was mentioned at the time.
I don't care what she says. I'm not rubbishing her statement. I'm saying to you, I wasn't in the room when it was, if it was. You can't just say, but she says it was. That's what I'm saying to you. That's my response.
Hubert Wilkes was goading you. I wonder if that plays a part in relation to what happened at Yale.
You've just
that I've got
taken
instead.
one statement of one person, and that's your God, your law. My first wife fires venom at me. Okay? For 4 years after I was convicted, there was all lovey-dovey love letters. She was visiting Wormwood Scrubs until suddenly she found another man and she comes out with this crap.
But
It is rubbish.
did you and Hubert Wilkes ever discuss robberies?
We never did.
Right. Okay. Now, I'm going to play you something, Bert, at the moment. I particularly wanted you to hear what your daughter said in relation to Hubert Wilkes and the discussion of robberies.
I particularly remember he would stand at the fire with his back to the fire, and I was lying on the settee. He would just constantly talk about robberies and how you can commit the perfect crime by escaping through the woods. And I'd
I'm
lie
sorry,
there and think,
I don't agree with that. Hubert Wilkes used to come to my house and drink whiskey. Never discussed robberies with me.
So your daughter's wrong.
She's made a mistake.
Well, she doesn't think that, Bert.
Okay, a lot of people think I killed Carl Bridgewater. I know I didn't, but I can't change their opinion.
This is really where I'm coming to. Would you mind if I showed you something?
Show me.
These are
What do you mean
distressing.
if I would I mind? Show me.
These
I'm
are
here for it.
distressing photographs.
Show me.
These are the crime scene photographs of Carl Bridgewater.
Right. That's at the scene, I assume.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
That's,
so why have you showed them to me?
I've showed you that because I think with the fact that you no longer have an alibi, that something happened that day that involved you at Yew Tree Farm, and I want you to listen again.
I've always felt that he saw something that day that killed him inside. If a story ever came out like I'd finished my shift and I'd got a little bit of time and I thought, right, I'll go and do that errand. And then suddenly you hear a gunshot go off. And then, after it's all dispersed, you
Tell
go
me.
in and you see something.
Tell
and
me,
you
'cause I
can't
can't
believe
hear
what
it.
you're
I can hear
looking
it.
at and what you're witnessing and what you're seeing, and you're just horrified. I have tried to discuss that with him on an occasion, but he was very emotional.
Was that what happened?
No.
Did you go to Yew Tree Farm that day? Your daughter thinks that you did go to Yew
Yes,
Tree
I've
Farm.
just heard what you said. She also thinks it was after my shift. After 5 p.m. Too late. Too late, mate. Even if I got there at 20 past, there's no gunshot. That was an hour ago.
Did you go after
No,
your
I did
shift?
not. You've forgotten the time, she said.
Did
after
you go
my shift.
after your shift?
No, for Christ's sake. What for? What? I wasn't working there that month. What for?
Well, after our first interview, I did a P scan on you.
What's that?
It means psychopathy scan. So this isn't a clinical diagnosis. This is a way that I can gain some insight into the person that I'm talking to. And the total score for you was in the high range. A total score that falls in the high range should be a cause for serious concern. It suggests that the person of interest may have many or most of the features that define psychopathy. Such a person is likely to be egocentric, callous, cold-blooded, predatory, impulsive, irresponsible, dominant, deceptive, manipulative, and lacking in empathy, guilt, or genuine remorse for socially deviant and criminal acts. And that fits you to a T.
It also fits you, you bugger. Some of the things you've said, to a T.
This is you, Bert.
So
You
you've just condemned me then, haven't you?
You are somebody that I regard
As a psychopath.
as a liar,
Yeah.
as somebody who is bent the truth, as somebody who's manipulative,
Yeah.
as conning. You're not this kindly old grandfather figure. That's your shtick, Bert, and I see through it. And all I can say to you is that in the absence of you having any alibi, because you were there when Barbra says she cannot stand up where you were on the afternoon that Carl Bridgewater was murdered.
I have an answer for you.
I am going to be taking this material to the police
Yeah.
because I think this case needs to be reopened.
Right. I'm not going to say, let me get a word in. I am going to get a word in, David. I think you need to see a psychiatrist. You are wrong. So very wrong. You're egoistic, all Mr. Important. What the hell does it matter what you think? The evidence shows. How the hell can I be there when I wasn't there? You'll have to prove that. Go ahead, do what you want. But I think you need psychiatric treatment, son. There's something wrong with the way you think. That is my belief.
I think now it's really a question for other people to make their decision on these kinds of things.
Well,
because
let them
all
do
I
it.
can do is tell you what I felt, and I will raise this elsewhere.
Okay, do that.
Thank you.
Big silence in the room. He's a fucking nutcase. I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
He knows that if he starts admitting that he was at Yew Tree Farm, then the police have got to be re-interviewing him.
It's all a load of absolute nonsense. It really is.
I could not believe what I was hearing.
He can't work it out, so instead of failing, he wants me as a scapegoat.
I'll certainly stand by my man. Every inch of the way.
This psychopath needs a cuddle.
I personally still think, with the fact that Barbra can no longer stand up his alibi, this case should be reopened.
Right.
As ever in the world of Bert Spencer, just when you think you've got some kind of conclusion, other possibilities immediately offer themselves up. Somebody's made contact with us that I've been wanting to speak to throughout this entire process. Bert's first wife. Janet has never spoken before on camera and has maintained a silence for some 38 years. I don't know what she's going to say, but I know whatever she says is going to be absolutely fascinating. Janet, how long were you married to Bert Spencer for?
About 16, 17 years.
Was he popular with the girls?
Yes, yes. With everyone, really. He was very well liked.
When you got to really know him for all those years, was there another side to him as well?
Oh, yes, yes.
Describe that other side for me.
Dark. He could be very volatile at times if things upset him or, you know, he'd had a bit too much to drink. He could change drastically.
Was he ever nasty to you?
Oh, yes, yeah.
In what way?
Oh, well, I mean, he's hit me. He hit me on a few occasions, but he was just very frightening and menacing, you know, when he lost his temper. He could be very intimidating.
Did he intimidate you?
Yes, yeah.
It sounds as if your marriage was like walking on eggshells.
It was, a lot of the times, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Janet was present the night that farmer Hubert Wilkes was killed. The murder has been described as a carbon copy of the killing of Carl Bridgewater. But what really happened that night? And did it have anything to do with the murder of Carl?
Can I take you back to the night that Hubert Wilkes was murdered? Can you describe to me what happened?
Went up to the farm. I went into the house with Bert, went into the dining room where I used to carry out some, work the payroll out for them. And then eventually when I'd finished the work that I'd got to do, I joined them in the lounge, and my first reaction when I saw Bert was that he seemed to have had quite a lot to drink in that short time. Jean had mentioned a book that she'd been reading, and it sounded interesting, so she went upstairs to fetch the book for me. And immediately she'd done that, Bert said that he was going to go to the toilet. So off he toddles, and I'm sitting with Mr. Wilkes on the settee. And he seemed to have been gone for some time, and I was getting concerned as to if he was okay. And at that, Bert appeared. I said, "Oh, there you are." And at that, he sort of sloped in and then turned round fully, and I could see that he'd got a gun in his hand, and he just shot Mr. Wilkes through the head while he was sitting on the settee.
What did he do to you?
Well, immediately that had happened, I thought, I'm next. And in the split second that he hadn't turned the gun on me, I run over and grabbed the gun with two hands and shouted at him, "Do you realise what you've done?" But at that point, Jean came in through the far door again, took one look, screamed and ran. So he took off after Jean. So I run into the kitchen, tried to unlock the door.
It's okay. It's okay.
I couldn't unlock the door. It was in darkness, so I ran and hid under the kitchen table. And as I knelt down, I could hear the gun clatter on the floor, and I thought, he's going to hear that. He came running in again, and he ran out into the yard.
Janet!
I went through the bottom door into the hallway, picked up the phone, and he appeared from the other door down the hall with another gun. A complete gun, not a cut-off one. And he proceeded to hit me over the head with it, time after time, till I went down. And I was thinking, you know, this is it. And at that, Jean came in again and through the door in the hallway and screamed, and he ran after her again. So twice I've never been able to thank her, but twice she saved me. And after that, it was just a question of trying to escape from the farm, really, without him finding me.
And you've got absolutely no doubt he was trying to kill you?
Oh. Well, he didn't shoot me. I can't understand why he didn't. If a few more, he probably would have killed me. A few more, you know, hits across the head.
On the night in question in December, had there been discussion about the Bridgewater case and the appeal being lodged by the Bridgewater 4?
Well, because I was in the office for most of the time, I can't say. I mean, it has been mentioned since. I'm not sure. We did see something on the television once together, Bert and I, that they were appealing against their conviction. I'm not sure whether it was that night, but I did hear, he did say, if they get off, they'll be after me.
Did he ever explain to you why he shot Hubert Wilkes that night?
Never. Never. He said he'd had a blackout. He's never given any logical explanation. No.
Bert claims that Mr. Wilkes was going to give you a special cocktail so as to be able to have sex with you. Is there any truth in that? Was that ever mentioned to you?
No. I know he's given that as a reason because he's put it down in writing to me in the following years, but no. I didn't know anything. If he had arranged something, I didn't know anything about it. I don't believe it anyway. I just don't believe it.
Did you discuss the Bridgewater case with Bert? I mean, here's the bit that confuses me. I went back to Ascot Gardens, where you used to live, and the Bridgewaters lived a few doors up.
That's right.
Did you socialise with the Bridgewaters?
We didn't actually socialise with them, but I know on one occasion when we had a party, they came and had a drink, you know, at the house. Several other people were there as well, quite a few actually, but yes, they did come and... So we knew them because they were near neighbours. We knew the son.
Carl?
Yeah, so I can't understand why he says he don't know him, because I did.
Janet, can you describe what you remember happening on the day that Carl was murdered when you went home?
I came into the house and I saw Bert standing there with his hands in his pockets. Body language telling me that he wasn't very happy. And I also noticed a jumper that had been pegged on the line, which a man had put on, because women don't peg jumpers on like that.
Was that one of Bert's work jumpers? What colour was it?
No, it was a casual jumper, a green jumper.
Did you ever see that jumper again?
No, never.
But was it clear to you that Bert had washed the jumper?
Oh, yeah.
It just disappeared?
It just disappeared. He went to bed, which he did do, went to bed early, and I then watched the news on the television.
Carl apparently stumbled on burglars.
And as I watched it, and everything about it, you know, the fact that who it was, where he'd lived, the boy, you know, what had happened to him, take it all in. Couldn't believe it. Washed, you know, just washed all over me. And I went upstairs and shook his shoulder. He wasn't asleep. And said to him, "Please God, please tell me you didn't have anything to do with that." And he said, "No, I didn't, but don't you think they'll be after me? It was my patch," or words to that effect. That's what he said.
And that must have been quite odd. How would he know about it?
Well, I've wondered since, actually, but I can't be sure that nothing was on the news earlier, but I can't say how he could have, I don't know.
But he wasn't watching the news with you?
No, he'd gone to bed.
And so you go upstairs, he's still awake, and you ask him, "Please God, tell me you had nothing to do with that." And he knew immediately what you were talking about.
Oh, yeah, he did.
Was Bert worried?
Yeah, he was concerned, and I said, "Well, I don't know why you're worried, because you were at work."
And what did he say to that?
He said, "Well, I wasn't there all day."
He said he wasn't at work all day?
He said, "I wasn't there all the time because..." I said, "Why?" And he says, "Because I didn't feel well." So he says, "I was in the toilets for a long time. I stomach problem." I said, "Well, surely someone must have seen you. Somebody must have heard you or seen you go into the toilets." He said, "No." He said, "Well, the only one that could probably say something is Barbra up the road. She lived a few doors away, Barbra." So we went and fetched her.
He went and fetched her?
Came down to the house. She said, yes, of course, you know. I can give a statement to the police, don't worry.
Did you believe that statement?
Well, knowing what he'd said to me, I just thought she was probably helping him out, but that it wasn't really that important because he wasn't the culprit. Oh, I was hoping he wasn't.
Bert clearly collected antiques, bought and sold antiques. Were you ever worried that some of those antiques were stolen?
No, I never suspected that, although he did a lot of wheeler dealing. But a friend told me that a bag containing antiques had been found in their shed because someone had seen Bert coming out of their driveway, and so the husband went down to have a look in the shed and found this bag of antique brassware and copper. So following on what my friend had told me when I went to visit Bert in prison, I did question him about this bag, and his words to me were, you must never, ever tell anybody about that, ever. So I said, well, OK, but, you know, what happened to them? He said he'd buried them somewhere around the Prestwood area, which is off the A449.
So the implication is he had stolen those antiques, tried to hide them in the shed of one of his friends, and then when he was caught having done so, challenged by your friend, he then buried the antiques that he'd stolen. Where do you think those antiques that were buried came from? Do you think they could have come from Yew Tree Farm?
Well, that's got to be the thinking of all of us as the friend asked him to move them, and it was close to the Carl Bridgewater time. We can only assume that he's got something that he shouldn't have had.
Janet, in September 1978, did Bert own a shotgun?
Yes, he did.
What happened to that shotgun?
I remember him saying, probably the day after Carl Bridgewater murder, that he ought to, you know, get rid of it or take it somewhere. And I don't know what happened to it, but there was a gun in the house at the time. And he did have a shotgun licence for it.
And he disposed of the shotgun the day after Carl Bridgewater was murdered.
That's right, yeah.
When you put all the various pieces of information that you're in possession of together now, what does it lead you to conclude?
Well, man, there's no concrete evidence, but I really believe that if he didn't actually shoot, he knows more about that than he's let on.
Would it surprise you if the truth was Bert Spencer, your ex-husband, killed Carl Bridgewater? Would that surprise you?
No, it wouldn't.
In fact, do you suspect that's what happened?
Well, you know, it's hard to say, but deep down, yes, I do, really, now.
Following Janet's damning claims, Bert is given a right to reply to them.
On the day of Carl's murder, Janet says she returned home to find a green jumper hanging on the clothesline. She believes Bert hung it there. She says he was behaving strangely. She says she never saw that jersey again.
Neither did I. I've no idea what that means. She'll have to expand upon that. I was in uniform, don't forget. If I was there. Green jumper. Sorry.
After returning from a family celebration, Janet saw the news report about Carl's murder on the TV. She rushed to tell Bert, who was in bed, saying Carl had been killed at Yew Tree Farm. And she said, "Please God, please tell me you had nothing to do with it." To which Bert replied, "No, I didn't. But don't you think they'll be after me?"
Oh, that's a nonsense. I did not say that. I don't agree with that.
Janet said Bert added the following explanation. "It happened on my patch." She has never understood why he made that remark, but realises now how odd it is.
I would never have made that remark and don't accept it.
According to Janet, Bert initially told her that he didn't have a proper alibi at work because he had been on the toilet most of the afternoon due to a bad tummy. She said later he physically fetched Barbra from up the road in order to give him an alibi.
What absolute nonsense. Read the police statements from Barbra.
Janet said that Bert had a shotgun and a shotgun licence, but disposed of the shotgun the day after Carl Bridgewater was killed.
No, I disposed of the shotgun. I used to buy and sell shotguns. I had a shotgun licence. I disposed of it about 2 months before Carl was killed, and the police are fully aware of that. They found the gun.
Bert once stored some antiques, copper and brass, were in a friend's shed and was spotted in the shed removing them. He was asked to move them, which he did. This happened after Carl's death, but before the death of Hubert Wilkes. When Janet later asked Bert about this in prison, he told her that they were buried near the A449 Prestwick Road, and she was never to tell anybody about that, ever.
I do not agree with that comment. It is nonsense.
Janet finally says, after many years, she has reached the conclusion that Bert probably did kill Carl Bridgewater, though at the time she didn't want to believe it of her husband.
I am aware of her opinion. Like many others in the world, she is welcome to her opinion. It happens I don't agree with it. I promise you, if you bring evidence that can be accepted in a high court that what you say is true, I promise you, Janet, no harm will come to you, no threats will be made to you, but I am ready to instigate my own kamikaze method. And I promise you, I would make sure you are immediately arrested, charged and found guilty of conspiring to pervert the course of justice for all these years, of putting 4 men behind bars unnecessarily, and more seriously, Janet, being an accessory after the fact. Regardless of all of the allegations that keep coming my way, hear this. I will never, ever be a scapegoat for the murder of Carl Bridgewater. By golly, I've had enough of this sniping. I've had enough, Janet. And when I've had enough, I may well institute kamikaze.